Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Really excited to have my friend Sean Thompson on today. We've known each other for a long time, probably 10 or 12 years. He's transitioned from single family to multifamily, and I have too. He's way more active. I'm a little more passive. But today we're going to talk all about kind of the transition from being a single family investor into multifamily investing. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Sean, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy. So have you been on any of my podcasts before? You've been on like the Flip Nerd show or something before, right?
Yeah, I was on one other time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
We've done over 1,500 podcasts. So sometimes I'm like, we've known each other for 10 or 12 years, been friends, do a bunch of stuff together. But I'm like, have you been on the show before? Sometimes I'm like, I just forget, drawing a blank.
Yeah, I don't do a ton of these. I mean, I guess I do quite a few, but not as many as you, of course.
Yeah.
So I've been on one other time.
Well, you're doing a lot more. Now, obviously, you've got your own podcast now, which we'll talk about at some point today. So, but for those of you that don't know Sean Thompson, other than being my friend, being obviously a multifamily investor now, just did your first deal, which we're going to talk about, which is really exciting. Yeah. And being a member of the Investor Fuel Mastermind, which we'll talk a little bit about at some point, sprinkled in here today. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in real estate in the first place.
Well, I always wanted to be a real estate investor on some level, right? I just never knew how to make it a business. I knew how to buy a house and kind of, how that works and stuff like that. But when early on, I didn't know how to make it a business, and I wanted to start my own business, and I would like to be in real estate, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. And so I finally decided to just buy a house, and I was going to figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
And I did that. And I used like a HUD 203B loan program to get, where they have, they give you some of the construction money and stuff like that. And so when I did that, my contractor at the time was a friend of a friend. He had just bought a HomeVesters franchise. And so he was telling me how there was a system for buying these houses. And I thought, well, that's exactly what I've been looking for forever. Right. So
was that Kenny?
Kenny. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he immediately, I said, you got to get me on this program. He immediately introduced me to you.
Yeah. Cause he was on my team.
Yeah. You were his DA at the time.
Yeah.
And so I went down and bought a franchise right away. I called you like that day, the next day, and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And so that kind of got me started as a real estate investor, as a business. Right.
So what year was that? When refresh my memory? Cause we're getting old now, and it's like, that was a long time ago, but.
Well, I think that's
probably 2011 or 2012, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 2011. I bought that deal in 2011, and we were working it through the end of the 2011, beginning of 2012, and right in the beginning of 2012 is when I signed up with HomeVesters.
Okay, so that means you and I have been friends and known each other for 10 years now.
10 years, yeah, I guess it's 10 years. Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome.
And so we just started, I started working single family, and my goal with investing has always been, to replace my my business income or my job income, right? And my wife's job income. So income is the thing that I've always wanted. And with single family, I was just never able to kind of get the velocity to hit the income goals that I wanted to, I had a great business and I was doing okay. And I was never concerned about being a giant volume person, like doing 150 houses just seemed like a nightmare to me. I always thought of my business as I want to make as much money as possible and, do as little effort as possible. So to be most efficient. Right. And so I would just do my few houses, and I made a lot more money than some guys who were doing those 100, 200 deals, cause I got to keep most of my money.
They had huge overhead, and you were
right. Yeah. You have to build a bigger machine to run bigger volume. Right.
Right.
And so I guess I could have done that, and I could have gotten more houses, and I could have, built my portfolio that way. But I just started thinking to myself, after about 10 years of doing that, I started thinking, hey, there's got to be a different way to do this. And I always thought apartments were kind of out of reach for me. I always thought it was hedge funds and big REITs and stuff. And I was in Investor Fuel. Actually, I was in Investor Fuel before it was Investor Fuel. You keep forgetting this, but
Yeah.
I was at the very, very first, when it was
You've been
just an
involved in
idea.
everything I've done for the last 10 years, I think, one way or another for sure. So,
Yeah. But, so I was in Investor Fuel, and Corey was also Investor Fuel member too. And he came
yeah.
and told his story. And once I heard his story, I mean, I literally got so excited in that when he was talking, I wanted to stand up and just tackle the guy and just say, hey, you gotta show me how to do this. This is what I've been looking for 10 years, you know? And so we kind of talked a few times, and he happened to have a kind of an education component to his business.
Right.
And so I finally convinced him to teach me how to do this stuff. And but it took me a year to kind of decide and believe that I could go from single family to multifamily. It's a big step. You're essentially 100xing your business. And it took me a year to kind of make that decision. So it was a little bit of time.
Yeah. Well, and it's the deals are fewer and far between, but they're big deals when you get them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I just created a plan. The last couple of years was kind of been my execution of the plan, but I created a plan I sold off some of my single family inventory. I had a few in my portfolio. And so I sold off some of my single family inventory, and that gives me some operating capital so that I can go for a while trying to get that, those bigger deals put together.
Right.
And luckily, with Corey's help, your help, everybody's help, that I've been able to finally get my last deal. We just closed on our first deal about 8 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. Wait, yeah, about a little over 8 weeks ago. Sorry, 2 months. And so now we're just operating that deal and working on our next one. So,
yeah, that's great. So maybe before because I want to get into your deal and kind of hear how things are going, what have been some of the biggest maybe challenges you faced in that transition? Because I think there's a lot of people that want to make that transition at some point, right? It's like Monopoly, like you want to go from the greenhouses to the red ones, right? And so,
right,
not hotels necessarily, but more multifamily. So talk about what were some of the kind of more painful things, or what guidance to people listening right now could they benefit from? Like, if I had just done this, it would have been easier. There's no silver bullets, but what are some of the lessons learned?
Yeah. So I'm still going through pain now. Right. So it hasn't gotten easier yet. I've had some success, but we still have to keep that momentum going. Right. So there's still some pain now, but I think the biggest critical steps are, number one, I got to learn from Corey. Right. So Corey does have a great, sort of a great foundation for building your business on. Has good information. I think if you find someone or a group that you can be involved with that can kind of give you a great foundation to launch your business from, you're still on your own. I mean, in this world, you're still kind of on your own. You got to get out there and hustle and do your own work and make things happen on your own. But in multifamily, you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So you are on your own, but you need a team around you that can support you and give you those resources that you need. So multifamily is a game that you can't do by yourself, in that if you haven't done it before, the banks aren't going to loan you the money, right? And I'm talking about, this is 100 plus, these are big deals, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't have the net worth, the liquidity, the experience, that you're not going to be able to secure the debt. So you're going to need partners that can do that, help you with that sort of thing too. So
yeah,
finding people that can be on your team for those things, and then raising capital is a big part of that too. We had to raise, several $1 million. Our next deal is going to be several $1 million more. And having people that can kind of help you with those things as well.
Yeah.
And
I love the structure. I love that it's team-based. You and I, where we came from, we were like lone wolves before. We're just out and you're doing everything yourself. And there's always, in every business, I'll say this, from a business maturity standpoint, pretty much everything I've done over the last 5 years, I have a partner, or it's like a JV, or it's like things where it's like there's things that I'm good at and there's things I'm not good at, right? And I love that approach. It just took a while to get there, like from a business maturity standpoint, because when you're in single family, you're kind of just scrappy and lean and mean early on, and you can't afford to have a team or whatever. But multifamily, you can't do it without a team. And so I just love that mentality of like for example, I don't ever want to be the guy that finds deals. I would rather focus on raising capital, because one, I think I'm better than that. Two, it's honestly a higher value add activity of raising money than finding deals in the multifamily space. Not that way in single family, but in multifamily it is, right?
Yeah, most single family guys. So I talk to single family guys all the time that are trying to make the transition because they've heard my story, and their first impulse is always to go find the deal. And I spent 2 years building a deal machine that all I do is find deals, and I got really good at finding deals. And then what I realized was once I funded my first deal, I wanted to go buy my second one. I had to find the money first, right? So it's like, well, it doesn't matter how good I am at finding deals. I need several $1,000,000 every time I do to make it happen, right? So I need that additional component to my business. If I were to do it over again, I would focus more energy on finding capital at the same time of finding deals. But the impulse of most single family guys is I can find the deals. I can find the deals. Well, that's great, but you better also allocate a ton of resources or energy or partnerships in finding capital at the same time. So
Yep.
that's another issue that I had. So finding partners that you can work with on a high level that can help you with debt security, and then finding people in your network that can help you with the other components like capital raising. And like for you, if you want to raise capital, but you don't want to operate the deal either. So
Right.
there has to be someone in that network of partners that wants to operate the deal and do the asset management and, keep on top of the property manager and report to the investors and all those types of things too. So you need all those components.
Yep.
And from a single family perspective, like you said, it's a very lone wolf business. And that was one of the struggles I had, was like, I was just used to doing everything myself. And now I have to have, several people in my team every time. So it's a change of mindset.
Yeah. The mindset is probably the biggest hurdle you face, I'm guessing. And I think the other thing is that, you said it hasn't gotten easier yet. I used to think like, because we complicate things like if it starts to get easier, then we find like, well, let's add something onto it and we make it more complicated. So I think I've gotten to the point now where I truly believe that things don't get easier. We just adapt to overcome the challenge faster, right? Like I don't want something that's easy. I just want to overcome like the mindset of that's hard. It's like, nah, we just have to get past the fact that stuff is hard. The stuff that we do is just generally hard, but we can tolerate it more as we kind of move forward, is kind of my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. So that's true. It hasn't gotten easier because I keep pushing to do more, right? That's what it is, really. I guess.
And that's what we do as entrepreneurs. We say, oh, I'd be happy if I could do a deal a year. And then you do one, you're like, well, I really want to do 10 next year. And like, we move the goal line. We move, that's what we do,
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I did my first deal and I'm like, okay, now let's go do another one, of course. And that's, so I'm going through that, but as I'm doing that, I'm learning new things and I'm like, well, why can't we do 10, So
yeah,
that's true. Yeah. I don't know. It's I guess the struggles will always be there as long as you're pushing to do big things. Right. So if you're always continuing to level up yourself and your business and your life and stuff, you're always going to have those struggles, I guess.
One of the cool things, a little bit of a plug here. We'll talk about Investor Fuel down the line, which you've been a part of for 4 years now in different groups. But not a lot of people know that we have this multifamily group now, which is a small group and growing. But what's really cool is on a couple of these deals recently, I've seen most people in the group are helping each other, participating, raising money for each other, like helping each other emotionally, whatever it is to kind of get through those deals. And it's pretty cool to kind of see people coming together for that, because our single family groups, which are way larger, as are amazing. Lots of people doing stuff together, but it's just not the same as people like saying, let's all jump in this and figure it out,
Yeah. And it's that team mentality again too, right? So it's no one can do this alone. And there's a lot of intricacy and complexity to this business that isn't necessarily in single family. On a fundamental level, single family and multifamily residential are essentially the same. You want to create beautiful communities that people want to live in, right? That's the basis of all of it. But the complexity of doing these transactions is 100 times different, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important that you have people that you can collaborate with, that you trust, to give you good high level information and feedback. When you're doing an underwriting, having someone else run through that underwriting is great. You get some feedback from them. Maybe you missed something. Maybe you want to change something. Add something. So it's having the group around you to kind of go through that process and to help out is important too. And in the group also, there's, I know Corey has had 3 or 4 members in the group raising capital for one of his recent deals. And so everybody can kind of come together to accomplish a goal of a new acquisition or something like that too. That's a lot of strength in that.
Yep. So let's talk about your deal. You finished up a couple months ago. I know you were working on it for a while. I know it's like the icebreaker. So now you're moving on to bigger and better things. But let's just talk about just maybe spend a couple minutes talking about the deal.
Yeah, well, it was our first deal. So it's a DFW deal, which I'm extremely proud of, because buying deals in Dallas is quite difficult, right? So I was having dinner with someone the other day, and I wasn't thinking about it, but they just asked me, what's it like buying deals in Dallas? And my first thought was, it's like an MMA fight. It's like being in a UFC fight or something.
Yeah.
You just got to get in there and crack some heads to get a deal done in this town, right? And so just having a deal in Dallas for me is a big deal, right? And so now now that we're a Dallas operator, we have a lot more, I guess, doors opening up to us. We're in an operators club here in Dallas, and the brokers locally are starting to say, hey, well, Sean can do it, so let's help him out, and so we're seeing more deals. We're getting further along in deals than we were before, and things like that. So there's a lot to it that's been kind of helping us level our game up. And I think we're going to buy more deals in Dallas as a focal point for sure. So, before we were kind of having to shop in other areas, but now that we're a Dallas operator, it makes it a lot easier. And I think most people they're not getting their first deal in the top market in the country, right?
Right.
So that's
talk
been
about
great
that a little
for
bit.
us.
You're because this is a thing. I don't think a lot of people realize this is once you close a deal, you're on the radar. And
Right.
a big part of the side of multifamily is the traditional model of going through brokers. Sometimes the properties are already listed, like in the single family space. Like, I know there's some people that say they buy off the MLS. I don't know how that's even possible in this market. In the 13, 14 years that I've been operating, I bought a couple off the MLS, like in the early years, and they were definitely not my best deals, like the kind that you like, well, I got to keep it as a rental because there's not enough meat on the bone.
Right. Yeah.
But the commercial side is very different. You're going through brokers and stuff. And so it's a real thing that once you're on the board, brokers that actually have deal flow are looking for people that recently closed, and they started reaching out to you, I suspect, right? To say, hey, we've got a deal for you. You kind of get on the radar, right?
Yeah, for sure. So as soon as we closed our first deal, we were inundated with new faces, right? So we hadn't talked to some of these companies or brokers in the past, and they were calling us saying, hey, we got a property we think you should look at, and so we were getting a lot of those opportunities that we weren't seeing before. And you touched on something that's interesting. In single family, you're buying properties at a discount because you're trying to hit a fixed retail, right?
Right.
And you're buying below that retail mark, and trying to fix and add value and then have a profit margin. In multifamily, you buy at a market rate, essentially at a market rate, and then you add value and your value goes up, right? Because you're operating on an NOI and a cap rate valuation. So it's a different mindset. A lot of guys come into this business from single family and they're like, what's the discount? And it's like, what? That's not how it works.
Right.
You're looking for value add opportunities that you can then drive value up, right? You're not looking for the discount.
There's not necessarily a cap on the value or the sales price like there is in it. The cap on single family, for the most part, is the retail value of what a homeowner would pay for it, right? Based on comps in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So you've got an appraised value. If it's $100,000, it's going to be $100,000. If you put $1 million into that property, it's not going to bump more than, much more than $100,000 in value, right? It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
In multifamily, you have a property that has some, mechanical issues, some deferred maintenance issues, some bad management. It's not operating at its full potential. That's where your discount. It's not that you're getting a discount on the property. It's that you're expected to come in and fix those problems and then increase your NOI. And that's going to give you a higher valuation because you're operating on an income valuation, right?
Right.
And so you're looking for opportunities. You're not looking for discounts. And a lot of guys, I think, in single family space are like, well, what's my discount? You have to start looking at the business as what opportunity upsides do I have?
Yeah. It could be that it's has a 15% vacancy rate. And you're like, well, just by getting it up to 90 or 92, we can add value there. And if we do a little bit of work here and improve the property, we can get the rents up. And it's basically a multiple of profit. So you could have two properties that are identical in every way, kind of same year built, all this side by side, but one of them is operating at a much higher level and it could be worth twice as much. than the one next door, all else equal. But it has nothing to do with the year built or how many
Right.
units they have or any of that. It's like, how is it operating? Because you're basing the value on a multiple of that NOI or that profit, right?
Yeah, it's a small business, and like we looked at deals recently. That the surrounding properties were doing great, but this particular property was owned by an out-of-state owner. They had an out-of-state property management company. That's their only property in this area. The on-site team was just kind of closing the doors. They weren't even hardly showing up for work. When they showed up for work to lease a deal or lease the units out, they were just leasing them to anybody that walked in the door. There's no qualifications. So the tenant base went way down, the occupancy went way down. So they're just poorly managing the property, right? So it's only worth this much money. But you come in and you come in and do anything to help fix those issues, and you're going to have a better, more expensive property, right?
Right. Yeah. So what's next for you? Obviously, you got one deal, and tell us about the deal real fast. It was like the purchase price and some of the just kind of high level purchase price and some of the improvements that you see that you're going to make to expand value, like we just talked about.
Well, we bought it. It's a smaller property, so it's only 76 doors, which is, I mean, I guess that's still a large property, but we focus on 100 plus usually in our underwriting. But we happen to have this opportunity come along, and the brokerage team that we're listing it, we have a great relationship with, and I really like those guys, and so we kind of pursued it. And the community itself is it's a great building. It has a property. The buildings are surrounding a courtyard. It's a very strong family community. So the family's kids all play together after school in the courtyard, and the families come out and barbecue on the evenings and weekends out in the courtyard and stuff. So it has a great feel to it. And so most of the capital expenditures that we're doing are to kind of enhance that community feel. We do have some, I guess, deferred maintenance issues that we're doing. So, like we're repairing the boiler and do a little bit of foundation work and things like that. So we have some big deferred maintenance that we're kind of conquering. And then we have just some interior value add stuff that we're doing. But, the funny thing about Dallas is that it's a crazy market. And just between the time we looked at it and the time we closed on it, our organic rent growth is already hitting our 2-year pro forma numbers, right? So without touching the property, all of our new leases that are coming up are on our 2-year number, right? So it's the performance here is just insane. You can't underwrite to that, of course. It's just you can't underwrite double-digit growth in your underwriting. You'll be disappointed if anything happens. But
sure.
So we're very excited about the upside on this particular property. And looking forward, we're just starting our CapEx execution now. I think with our property management group, and everything's going pretty well. We're excited.
That's great. So Sean, if you don't mind, you've been in Investor Fuel from the beginning. Like you said before, it was Investor Fuel.
Yeah.
Started in the single family groups. Then you started making your transition to multifamily and moved over into what we call our cash flow group, which is fairly new. It's only been around for 6 months or so, that I partnered with Corey Peterson on. And would you mind just kind of sharing a little bit of your experience in kind of the Investor Fuel family? Because you've been around from the beginning.
Yeah. So it's critical to find, I think, if you're trying to go to the next level in your business or in your life or whatever it is, especially in single family, I found a great deal of value in having people around me that I could, kind of collaborate with. I had questions about, what kind of mailers are you sending out, or what should I be putting on what kind of text should I be putting on my mailers, or whatever, whatever little questions you have. And when you're by yourself, you don't know how to collaborate with those things, right? So having a group that you can go to and turn to that are doing these things on a very high level, that are doing them every day, and these are guys that are succeeding, and that you can trust them to give you the answers and stuff. So have a group around you like that. It's just it changes everything, right? Before the group, I was just kind of operating my business, and I could call you and a few friends, and ask questions and things. But having that collaboration on a consistent level, monthly calls and quarterly meetings, and being able to interact and engage with people that are doing the same thing you're doing, and going to the next level with it, I think is if you're really trying to make a success out of your business, I think it's a critical move to be in a group like that for sure. And then finding a group that has kind of a similar, I don't know, what do you want to call it, vibe or something, a similar feel to the way you want to kind of live your life. I have a certain lifestyle I want to maintain and run my business that way and sort of things like that. And you want to have those people around you that kind of have that same philosophy. And, it's because you want to be going in the same direction with the group as you want to be going in yourself individually. Right. So I think that's critical. And for me, you and I are good friends. And for me, I like the way you do things. I like how you set things up. And I think the people you attract are similar to me or you. Right. And so it just kind of works out that way. Not everybody's going to fit in your group, but there's a group out there for somebody, right? For everybody. But I think, for me, it was perfect.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I appreciate that. And it's cool. Like you said, kind of the way you want to live your life. Like I've said this many times, like Investor Fuel is like my second family, and, everybody in there are also my customers. So, I get that, but the truth is it's not all about money for me. It's about being around the people that I want to be around. And we do stuff like, I know you just got back from Hawaii with Corey and some of the folks in the cash flow group. And I've got a bunch of trips planned, from whitewater rafting in Colorado to, we've got a trip in Vegas where we're going to go shoot sniper rifles in the desert. And, it's just doing stuff, and not everybody is able to come to all these events for sure. But I think just having a community like that to go do cool stuff that creates a lifetime of memories with is that's why we're in real estate. That's why we're entrepreneurs, right? Is we want to be able to live a more abundant life and do things that the average person just doesn't get to do, right?
Yeah. And being around people that are building that for themselves and then helping you do it at the same time is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, Sean, if great stuff, excited to see where you go from here, excited to participate in your deals with you in the future and all those things we've talked about. If folks wanted to connect with you, you have a podcast. Of course, there's people that, if they have any interest in investing, how do they reach out to you? How do they connect?
Well, we're of course continuing to look for new deals. We're buying more and more as much as we can. We're always looking for people to partner with on those sorts of things. So I guess the best place to go to get our central information would be our website. And it's just ThompsonMultifamilyGroup.com. And Thompson, I don't know if you can see it on my shirt or something, or my logos, but it's THOMSON. There's no P. So just ThompsonMultifamilyGroup.com. And you can get to our podcast there. You can get to our social media connections there. You can get I think you can even schedule a meeting with me on there somehow. But all of our stuff is on our website. So reach out to us. I always like to talk to guys that are trying to start out their business. So we like to talk to investors that want to look at multifamily as an option for them. We like talking to all those, sorts of people. So feel free to reach out to us, and then check out our podcast too. It'd be great.
That's great. I'll add a link down in the show notes here for any of you that weren't able to write that down, or it is a little bit of a longer URL. So I want to make sure you get to the right place. So down in the show notes for this show, we'll have a link for you. Sean, really appreciate your time, spending some time with us today, my friend.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course. And everybody, if you haven't checked out Investor Fuel yet, go to investorfuel.com. You can learn a little bit more about what we're all about, whether you're a single family investor, or if you're a multifamily investor, or you're in the transition process. We have a pretty amazing group that we call the cash flow group, which is those that are transitioning from single family to multifamily, and many of which own hundreds of doors. Some are just doing their first deals right now. I think most people in the group have actually done a deal here in the past year, participated in deals, which is really cool to see kind of inside of our family. So appreciate everybody. See you on the next episode. Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.